At first, the Trump administration seemed to be doing all the right things to respond to the disaster in Puerto Rico. As Hurricane Maria made landfall on Wednesday, September 20th, there was a frenzy of activity publicly and privately. The next day, President Trump called local officials on the island, issued an emergency declaration and pledged that all federal resources would be directed to help. But then for 4 days after that, as storm-ravaged Puerto Rico struggled for food and water amid the darkness of power outages, Trump and his top aides effectively went dark themselves. Trump jetted to New Jersey that Thursday night to spend a long weekend at his private golf club there, save for a quick trip to Alabama for a political rally. Neither Trump nor any of his senior White House aides said a word publicly about the unfolding crisis. Trump did hold a meeting at his golf club that Friday with half a dozen cabinet officials, including Acting Homeland Security Secretary Elaine Duke, who oversees disaster response, but the gathering was to discuss his new travel ban, not the hurricane. Duke and Trump spoke briefly about Puerto Rico but did not talk again until Tuesday, an administration official said. Administration officials would not say whether the president spoke with any other top officials involved in the storm response while in Bedminster, New Jersey. He spent much of his time over those 4 days fixated on his escalating public feuds with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, with fellow Republicans in Congress and with the National Football League over protests during the national anthem. In Puerto Rico, meanwhile, the scope of the devastation was becoming clearer. Virtually the entire island was without power and much of it could be for weeks, officials estimated, and about half of the more than 3 million residents did not have access to clean water. Gas was in short supply, airports and ports were in disrepair, and telecommunications infrastructure has been destroyed. Federal and local officials said the lack of communications on the island made the task of assessing the widespread damage far more challenging, and even local officials were slow to recognize that for this storm, far more help would be necessary. "I don't think that anybody realized how bad this was going to be," said a person familiar with discussions between Washington and officials in Puerto Rico. "Quite frankly, the level of communications and collaboration that I've seen with Irma and now Maria between the administration, local government and our office has been unprecedented. Whether that's been translated into effectiveness on the ground, that's up for interpretation," the person added. Unlike what they faced after recent storms in Texas and Florida, the federal agencies found themselves partnered with a government completely flattened by the hurricane and operating with almost no information about the status of its citizens. The Federal Emergency Management Agency struggled to find truck drivers to deliver aid from ports to people in need, for example. The level of devastation and the impact on the first responders we closely work with was so great that those people were having to take care of their families and homes to an extent we don't normally see, said an administration official who spoke on the condition of anonymity because he did not want his statement to be interpreted as criticism of authorities in Puerto Rico. The Department of Defense, FEMA and the federal government are having to step in to fulfill state and municipal functions that we normally just support. Even though local officials had said publicly as early as September 20th, the day of the storm, that the island was destroyed, the sense of urgency didn't begin to penetrate the White House until Monday, when images of the utter destruction and desperation, in criticism of the administration's response, began to appear on television. One senior administration official said. The Trump administration was slow off the mark, said Representative Darren Soto, D., the first Florida lawmaker of Puerto Rican descent elected to Congress. "We've invaded small countries faster than we've been helping American citizens in Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands." Trump's public schedule Monday was devoid of any meetings related to the storm, but he was becoming frustrated by the coverage he was seeing on TV. The senior official said. At a dinner Monday evening with conservative leaders at the White House, Trump opened the gathering by briefly lamenting the tragedy unfolding in Puerto Rico before launching into a lengthy diatribe against Senator John McCain, Republican Arizona, over his opposition to the Republicans' failed health care bill, according to one attendee. After the dinner, Trump lashed out on social media. He blamed the island's financial woes and ailing infrastructure for the difficult recovery process. He also declared that efforts to provide food, water and medical care were doing